All right, day one in the books. Dan and Brad, press conferences, Combine 2026. We're going to talk about it. All right, what's happening, everybody? It is Rockhound Detroit Lions, and we are at the apartment tonight here in Indianapolis covering the 2026 NFL Combine Day 1 recap. I'm going to apologize for the sound, the lighting, and everything else because we can't do anything about it. So it's two guys in a plant tonight here on Rockhound Detroit Lions. Hope you guys had a wonderful day. I know I did, because Eric and I were credentialed for our first time at the NFL Combine. This dude actually got to ask two questions, so I feel pretty proud about that. We got two questions in, so the Rockhound Detroit Lions family can feel proud tonight that those questions are from you as well. Eric, how'd the day go for you today, man?
Today was pretty darn cool. Learning process for sure. Got to see a bunch of the people that I watch on YouTube every day and on ESPN and CBS and NBC, and even the Sirius XM radio guys were there. So it was pretty cool to see all these people. Got to meet Justin Rogers and Jeremy Reisman and a lot of the Detroit people that cover the Detroit Lions. So that was also pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Rubbing elbows today. Oh, that's coming on your mic. Hold on.
Yep.
There we go. Rubbing elbows today with Ian Rappaport, or Shefty. It was Ian Rappaport.
Yeah, I almost ran into him.
Trevor Sikkema. I almost ran over him.
Yeah.
I got to shake hands today with Trevor Sikkema. He does the stock exchange. I can't remember if that's through PFF or what, but it's the stock exchange. I watch it a couple of times throughout the season, but got a chance to talk with him, speak with him. Maybe something for the future, maybe not. We'll see. We got to meet some of the other guys, everyone from Detroit media, and I still can't remember the one guy's name. That he's like 9'10".
Oh yeah, from the Drop the Mic.
It's from Check the Mic. It's not Sam Monson. It's the other guy with the curly hair.
Yeah, dude, he's like 7 foot tall,
and I can never remember his name, but just super nice guy.
Yeah.
Today was a good experience, man. We got to meet, greet, kind of get our feet wet into the whole system, and honestly, it's I guess it's really no different than what I expected it to be. A lot of craziness, a lot of people running around, and to think that we could have been in Radio Row had I not fumbled the football. That would have been a great experience. We would have been in there with every team that was represented by a podcast, and then all of the big channels. So 2027, man, here we come. I'm already looking forward to 27, and we got some news to announce. So I'll get into the chat here for just a second. Let me see who's all in. So we got J Rod in the house, Attila, Grandma Trace, Salty. Who else is in here? I don't even know how many people we have in. Gina,
J Rod, Jeff Stevenson.
Dwayne
Pork Chops.
Dwayne Keene. How many people are in? How many people we got?
29, 30.
That's great. Not enough. Not enough. But it's okay. We're going to be doing this every week or every night this week. But big news today. So a couple of questions that I got to ask. Number one, asking Brad Holmes the Tate Ratledge question. And, he was talking about center. And I was telling Eric earlier today, I started thinking about the center position a lot more when I started thinking about the Chicago Bears and what they did last season. and how important the center position really is to your offense. And quite honestly, I was kind of breaking it down in my own head like this. I don't believe Caleb Williams is this mastermind of the football as a quarterback. I think it's the level of center that they brought in that made all the difference, calling all the calls, the checks, the line protections. And so you saw a lot of growth out of Caleb Williams, into this last season. And then I started to think about our offense in Detroit and how we didn't have a center. I mean, we had Graham, and Graham's okay, but when you have a rookie to your right, you've got injuries to your left, injuries on your far left. Penei Sewell got banged up a little bit throughout the season. We have massive, communication issues with the offensive coordinator, and I just felt like we always had 5 lug nuts loose, and the car was just kind of wobbling, all season. It was just wobbling. You're hitting a speed bump, and it's like, oh shit, we just lost another lug nut. So I'm thinking about the Chicago Bears and their growth in one season. They brought in 3 Pro Bowl or All-Pro type, offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference for why Chicago was able to do what they were able to do. So does that mean that the Lions go out and buy in free agency? Well, prior to today, we might have thought that. But now Decker's coming back.
Linderbaum got a offer.
Linderbaum got a massive offer. And then Tate Ratledge. The question to Brad Holmes, is Tate Ratledge still part of the equation for center? And shockingly enough, Brad Holmes said, yes, he's still in play. We'll listen to Brad here in a few moments, but he's still in play, but it's not that he was doing anything wrong last year. It was the growth as a rookie and getting that opportunity at guard. So do you think that putting Tate over at center this year makes sense? I mean, I heard Brad today. The second-year growth is huge, and I'm going to shoot off. I guess I'm going to give you this to chew on while you answer it, because someone in the comments earlier said, "Do you want one person that does a little bit of 3 things good, or however they said it? Do you want one guy that can do 3 things good, or do you want one guy that's a master of one?"
Yeah.
And for me, that's the question about Tate. Do you want one guy that can do multiple things, or do you want someone that does center really well that's been doing it their whole life? So what do you prefer, and then what do you think about Tate?
Well, I would actually prefer, since we got a little news on another player, that the Lions still go out and take the best left tackle in the draft. Try to get McGovern, since it looked in the fold. Excuse me. So maybe, just maybe, the Lions are going to try to make a move in free agency to get a center who has been a center. Or they might try to draft someone like one of the prospects that I want to look at in the 3rd or the 4th round, maybe the 5th round, and get a center who is just a center.
So I guess that there is the question, though. I mean, the centers in the 5th or 6th round, do they become really good centers in the league? And I would say few and far between. You're going to get one probably out of 10.
Where was Linderbaum drafted?
I think he was a 4th or 5th round pick.
Exactly.
But again, that's that 1 out of 10. If you look at the majority of drafts, maybe go back to the last 15 drafts, I'm going to say that there's probably 7, 8 first round draft picks in there that are really, really, really good. And then, the thing that I keyed in on today with what Brad Holmes was saying is I think we really couldn't hear the questions, even though, guys, funny as it is,
man,
we're in the room, we can't even hear the questions.
No, at all.
So I get everyone's pissed about not hearing the questions, and I am too, because they need to have multiple mics facing us. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, a little sidebar here.
Yeah.
But we can't even hear the damn question. So I'm the only guy projecting my question like, hey,
there's 1 or 2 people that projected well. Everyone else was like, hey, can I ask you a question? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So anyway, I picked this up on what Brad was saying, because the question was, where do you take a center? Is that, we see him more as like a 3rd or, day 2 or day 3 guy is where these centers are going to be available. And Brad said something to the point of, Yeah, I'm not so sure that, like a first round makes sense or not. He still thinks first round could make sense for a center in this draft.
Yes, but it just depends if they are going to also try to take a left tackle, because you don't take a left tackle. Like we had a conversation in the car. You take a left tackle in the first round. You don't take a left tackle in the third, fourth, fifth round, but you can take a center like Pat Coogan in the third, fourth, or fifth round.
Yeah, Pat Coogan, he's one that I think that we both kind of like. He's interesting.
He's interesting. He is my one player that I am kind of focused on already in this draft process, and for sure we'll be talking to him on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day we get the offensive linemen, because I think we get those a day before.
Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, we have the list now, but we'll definitely lock it in for you guys. So, do us a huge favor in the chat. Let us know, and especially in the comments, we need your help. Like, you guys got to tell us what players you want us to interview, because we're going to have to hit it hard. And there's 8 different podiums, so we've either got to divide and conquer, or we've got to just hit what we can hit. What interviews do you want? Now, of course, we'll be able to get all the interviews after the fact. I mean, just like Brad and Dan, their interviews are put online almost immediately. So it's not that the info won't be there. Excuse me, but we may not have an opportunity to ask a question if we're not there. Yeah. And there's going to be some questions that I'm going to want to ask that maybe other people don't think about, and vice versa. I want to hear what other people are asking that we may not hear later what the damn question was. So I'm not as well versed right now as to what centers are really available. I mean, there's Connor McGovern, there's Tyler Linderbaum, there's Cade Mays, and I'm not really sure after that who would make a lot of sense in the free agency market. I think if it were me, I want someone that's going to go in and solidify that offensive line today, right now, and I don't want, I don't want to have to wait. And I think that's the best center in the draft. Yeah, there's going to be a learning curve. And if you're around some good vets, then that learning curve changes. Or if it's the best center in free agency, it's go time. And I think that we also heard Dan say today too that, well, it was either Dan or Brad. I got him confused now.
Dan about the splash.
That it's kind of like time to go. What are we going to do to our roster this year, and how are we going to attack the roster at a different level than maybe we've done in the past? And so that should make you guys excited about what Dan and Brad are getting set up to do here. I think that this free agency period and this draft is going to be the most different than we've ever seen. And so I don't know, wear a second pair of underwear or something, because I think everyone's going to get pretty happy this free agency period, because it's going to be interesting. Like, that was the other question was asked to Brad. Will they open up some money, open up some salary cap? Yeah. And they've had the conversations. So maybe, I guess, speak to that a little bit. He said they had some of the conversations today, and there's an opportunity.
Yeah. And someone asked him, they said, hey, look what Patrick Mahomes did with the Chiefs. Are you guys planning something like that with Jared Goff? And he didn't come right out and say yes. But he said, we have every option in the book still available to us, and we are looking at that option and some other options. So I think for sure he has something already done, already planned with Jared Goff and any of our other big players like Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, these guys that they can move some stuff around and make a little bit of cap, because they're going to have to do a little bit no matter what. But maybe he's got a wild card up his sleeve. Maybe he has some Cam Sutton money laying around and doesn't have to do a whole lot to make some cap space so we can go after a free agent. And maybe they're keeping it secret as long as they can, because they don't want anyone knowing how much money they have right until free agency starts.
And I think that's probably the big key. I don't even think that the Lions really need to announce anything, because if you think about it, once the new league year starts, as long as they are in the plus column,
Yeah.
which they should be, then they can go into free agency and do whatever they want. They could show that they have $1 million in cap space.
Yep.
And they can go in and go ahead and sign, $50-60 million worth of, contracts that, maybe have to get paid that year. I'm not saying that they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And then you find out that later on that afternoon or whatever that, hey, Jared Goff freed up $43 million.
Yeah. And he did it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that
let
happens
me,
every
let me
year.
pause you there, because once a contract gets changed, the conversation could happen weeks prior.
Yeah.
But once the contract gets changed, that gets sent into the NFL, and then everyone at the NFL knows, and it'll leak. But speaking of linemen, speaking of the offensive line, so it's kind of, ironic, or maybe it's not. A conversation about Taylor Decker today.
Yeah. Both of them got asked today, Brad and Dan, got asked about Taylor Decker. Both of them were very elusive, but Dan, I think it was Dan, said that they should know something within 3 weeks because that's when free agency starts. So they should know by the start of free agency whether he's going to make up his mind to retire or come out of retirement and keep on going for year 11. And a couple hours later, Taylor Decker puts out on his Instagram, "I'm coming back. Put me in, coach. It's year 11 time." So he must be feeling a lot better. The shoulder must be healing up pretty well. He's had almost 3 months now with no work on that shoulder, because you got to remember, he didn't play in that last game. So he's had that week off. They weren't in the playoffs at all. So 2 months of the playoffs, two plus months, he's not been hitting that shoulder. He's not been going up against defensive ends. So he must be healed up, and he knows how his body is feeling. So he must be feeling better at this time of year this year than he did last year at this time of year. Because last year he was very much contemplating retirement last year. So it's good to see that he's right away, hey, yep, I'm in, coach. I'm ready to go. He must be feeling better.
Okay, so with that, prior to that information coming out today about Taylor Decker, that he's going to go ahead and play his 11th season. Mm-hmm. Apparently on his Instagram, he put something out that said, quote, "Who shall I send and who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me." And then Decker hashtag year 11 said he's coming back. According to a couple of sources, including Ian Rappaport, had also confirmed the fact that he is coming back for year 11. However, it was Dan today that also, I guess, kind of piggybacking off of this, said whether he's coming back or not, the Lions still need to go out and do something about it. Yep. Because what happens if, and I think to use his exact words or close to, was if we need a guy, in a pinch or in a crunch, or if we need him to start. And just because Taylor Decker's coming back supposedly today,
Yep.
does not mean that that's going to stick. It doesn't mean that come, league day number 1, the Decker plans on playing. I mean, this could be a huge ploy. It could be, they're trying to pull the old, wool over the sheep's eyes, if you will. Who knows? That's, I guess, tinfoil hat, 5 seconds there. Look, I don't.
He's coming back.
He's probably coming back, but do you trust the shoulder? I don't. Do you trust his age? I don't. Do you trust Taylor Decker to be dominant at left tackle? I don't. And it's not to say that I don't love the dude and how good of a football player he's been for Detroit. I would love to see him, play one more year at the elite level that Taylor Decker has played in, during his career. Something, it's just sticking at me that we need that replacement on this squad now. Because if we go into this season not knowing, and then we have something happen again with that shoulder, and he's down, or he's playing, at 80%, that's not good enough to win.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But anyway, congrats to Decker on year 11. I hope that he can last the season. And again, I mean, the Lions could opt to still release him, even though he plans on coming back. They could release him post June 1 and still save about $13 million. And I mean, all those things could happen. And I think that, you know, with Decker coming back, the Lions can kind of look at this draft eyes wide open. But if I'm Brad Holmes, I know that there's a couple of things that have to happen. And the next part is Kirby Joseph. So the Kirby Joseph thing today,
It was
first it was my question, right? So my question was, you know, hey, Dan, the confidence on Kirby Joseph for the season. And that answer was not good. It was not good because he said, you know, maybe in about a month and a half, we'll kind of get an idea. And he also said, you know, we're kind of working him in now, finally kind of getting him going a little bit and trying to see if that strength's going to hold up. You guys know what Dan said. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he's been out now for like over 6 months.
Yep.
What do you mean you're just now getting back to this? And then a source had said that Kirby Joseph, alleged, I'm just going to say this up front.
Yeah.
That has a similar injury to Todd Gurley. Eric, can you tell us a little bit about the Todd Gurley injury?
Let me see if I got it lined up here. So, Todd Gurley, let's see here. Todd Gurley, he suffered from an early onset osteoarthritis, the wearing down of the articular cartilage that cushions the knee joint, often referred to as the bone on bone. Just a few weeks ago, prominent sports medical expert David Chow gave a highly alarming prognosis for Kirby Joseph. He compared articular cartilage to the tread on your tires. Once the rubber is gone, it doesn't grow back. So what he was saying is that this might be osteoarthritis in his knee, and this might be bone on bone. This may be the exact same thing that cut Todd Gurley, who was an all-pro, who got Jared Goff to the Super Bowl. That's how good of a running back Todd Gurley was. If you go back and watch a little bit of Todd Gurley pre-2019, man, 2018, 19, 20, he was amazing, and then he just fell right off the map. And it was his knee. And it wasn't an ACL. It wasn't something that could be fixed. It was bone on bone. And the things I'm looking into right now, this may be the exact same thing that Todd Gurley had, and this may cut Kirby Joseph's career short, whether he wants it to or not, and whether the Lions want it to be cut short or not.
You know, I'll say this, and I've never, I guess, been afraid to, you know, share things with people, but I have osteoarthritis, and I have the interarticular kind. It's in my hips, my back, my knees. It's my shoulders. It's everywhere. And, you know, I beat the hell out of my body when I played sports, and I played rough, man. And you know, you kind of pay for those things over time, but there's things like this that sometimes you can't do anything about because it's more of a rheumatologic disorder, and you can't do anything about your body fighting itself, and you know, you just don't know why you have the inflammation. The unfortunate side is there's no unwinding of an interarticular disease with cartilage. And unfortunately for Kirby, I think time is kind of not on his side. Not kind of. I mean, it's really not on his side. And the fact that Dan Campbell said that there's just now getting him in the building and they'll know in about a month or a month and a half. Well, right there, what does that tell you? If you really think about what is a month or a month and a half, Eric, that you're talking about the draft.
Yeah, this is go time.
And I think that he specifically mentioned, you know, month and a half because, you know, well, you're into free agency. And then you've got the draft right after that. You know, let's see, when is free agency? That's about March 11th.
Yep.
So that puts us in just a couple of weeks away. That month mark,
dude. And someone asked Brad today. You know, both Branch and Kirby may not be healthy enough to start the season. What are you going to do with safety?
Yeah.
And he said he specifically said that he is going to have to look at the draft and free agency for safety help. Where we have to get some bodies.
You know, what's maddening to me is I could just say, you know, guys, look, we're good.
We're good. We're good. We're good.
I had to.
We're good.
We're good. But no, in all honesty, I think that when you look at the draft and you look at the opportunities in free agency, there's plenty of guys. Unfortunately, from the situation like Tyler Linderbaum, there's going to be other guys that we're going to lose to that same situation, whether it's, Jalen Hawkins or a Geno Stone, or, there's other safeties out there that are available right now, but they may not be available here in a couple of weeks when their teams decide to keep them.
Yep.
And then moving forward to the draft, I could say, okay, absolutely, McNeil Warren, he is the next Emanawari. He could even be better. You don't pass on an opportunity like that. And I don't care, how good Brian Branch is. If this dude is as good or better than Kirby Joseph at some point, and he can step onto the field day one and play at a high, elite level, that takes so much pressure off the rest of that defense. And I know that it sucks because you're going to have to get him in round one because you're not going to get him at 50.
Yeah.
And in round one, you're going to end up passing on, Caden Proctor, Akeem Messidor, and others. I mean, we'll find out this week where some of those players are going to be remocked, after they run.
But didn't you know we are going to go all in? We're pushing all our chips in. We are bringing Max Crosby to the Detroit Lions. We're trading away all of our future.
Yep.
And then in the draft, we are moving up to number 2, and we are taking the best draft eligible edge.
But why would we bring in Crosby and then move up to number 2 and get an edge?
Well, because we have to have 3 of the best edge in the NFL.
Okay.
Because 1's not good enough, 2's not good enough. We got to have 3.
We have to
have
be
a backup.
We have to be extra good.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
At just the edge position. That's the only position we are drafting this year.
I mean, if you just look at if you were to put all 11 players, on a board.
Yeah.
And you paint the line, your front 4, and you got your edge guys, you got your linebackers, and you got your 4 draped. You could right now put a dart at the top. You need a safety. You can put a dart at nickel. You need a nickel guy. You can put a dart at the Sam. You need a Sam. You can put a dart at right edge. You need an edge. And then on the other side of the ball, you can put a dart at left tackle. You can put a dart at center. And you can put a dart at running back. The Lions need 7 to 8 premium players that we just had on this roster 2 years ago. Last year, some of them didn't play to their best abilities. And so now we're going into this season unknown as to what's about to happen. And we need players everywhere. That we can't do enough unless Brad is either, one, willing to spend a lot of money and free up a lot of money, which isn't always the answer, but it could be for this year. Or 2, he's willing to give away some future draft picks, assuming that there's a team out there that's willing to accept them and add more draft picks this season. I would rather them do that than bring in a bunch of unknown UDFA guys and maybe 1 or 2 of them stick around, but those aren't the kind of players that I want this year. The type of players that I want Brad to go all in. And maybe I should ask that question today. Like, what's stopping you from trading future draft capital since you value the draft so much? What is stopping you from trading, future draft capital to get some elite players this year, to set your future, sustainment goals and also maybe play at a higher level this year, at least with higher backup, probability. So I don't know. I guess we're going to see what happens. What do you think, man? Do you think he's going to go all in with some future draft picks?
He might. He might just do some things that he's never done before. I see this. They've tried to do the same thing 5 years in a row. Mm-hmm. They've done 5 drafts. They've had 5 free agencies. I really see them maybe getting out of their comfort zone this year because you have 2 major problems for the Detroit Lions. You have one on offense and one on defense. You have a safety problem, and you have possibly a left tackle or center problem. So you have a problem on the offensive line. You have a problem in the defensive backfield that you need to fix. These are two problems that have to be solved, either with starters through free agency, the draft. I don't care how you get them, but Brad might not have enough capital in this draft to get done what he needs to get done just to get a stable 53 players and backups on the field.
Well, he definitely doesn't. I mean, when you look at the number of draft picks we have right now, going from memory, we're picking at 17, we're picking at 50. We don't have a third. I think we're picking around 108 in the fourth.
Fifths, right?
And then we have 3 6. I think we have 1 5th and 1 7th.
Yeah.
So what is that? 3, 4, 5. Was that 6, 7 draft picks?
Yeah, we have 7.
We have 7, and it's not enough. It's not enough when you think you need a premier center, and there might not be one in free agency that you love. Even though you have Seth McLaughlin on the roster, you know there's a lot to I guess. Seth McLaughlin's an interesting conversation because he was the number 1 center coming out of the draft in 2024, I believe. And I think he suffered an ACL injury during his senior season, which dropped him out of the draft as a UDFA, if memory serves me. Mm-hmm. And then he was picked up.
Cincinnati.
So he was at Cincinnati?
Yeah.
And so then the Lions snagged him at the end of this year. You know, when the season was done, they picked him up. I believe they signed him to a futures deal. He's interesting because if he's the player that we expect him to be.
Yep.
Okay, now think about the fact that Tyleik Williams was playing with him. So there's some history there. They know each other. Tyleik could tell you a lot about Seth McLaughlin. And matter of fact, I wish I could have somebody like that, on the podcast someday because I want to know who is Seth McLaughlin. When you went up against him, how was he? And who is he as a guy? What is his brain all about? Is he someone that can lead this team as a starting center? I'm sure he would give us a definite answer, yes, because he's not going to say anything different, but you never know what you might learn. So I think he would have a wealth of knowledge to get some information from. So that's an interesting opportunity for the Lions. If they were to stand down from the center position completely, then I would believe that means that, Tate Rowledge is going to fight for it, and Seth McLaughlin's going to fight for it, and maybe Graham Glasgow sticks around and fights for it, and may the best man win. And I would hope that that's Tate or Seth and not Graham. I would love to see Graham stick around as a backup guard.
Yeah.
And get, rid of the other backup guards that we used to have. So he's just an interesting opportunity for the Lions. So if the Lions don't go center and Decker's coming back and you decide, okay, maybe we don't have to go left tackle early, you could get a left tackle in the second round. I could see where Lomu would be available then. And maybe that makes sense. Or maybe Blake Miller would be available then. Or Monroe Freeling maybe. I can't see Freeling at 17 right now. We'll see how he tests on Sunday, but I just don't see him at 17. I think that second round maybe makes a lot of sense for left tackle if you're thinking that you're trying to address other needs, which would be McNeil Warren in the first round at 17. Or the Lions could still trade back. And I firmly believe when you're at 17, there's probably 15 first-round grades by most people's judge, or evaluation. So even if a couple of players go where they're not supposed to go and you end up with a really good option at 17, if you could move down 2 or 3 spots, I don't think that that's going to make a big enough difference to the quality of player that you're going to get at 20 or 21 versus 17 that would say, nope, I don't want that extra second-round pick. I really don't think that the difference is going to be there. If it's McNeil Warren at 17 and he's gone at 19 and you're picking at 20, then you're pissed. Right? Then you're pissed. But if you were able to get McNeil Warren at 20 or 21 and you picked up another second round pick, that changes things. Because then you have 3 guys that can start right away and you should be able to attack 3 positions easily. So I guess I'll ask you that question. You think the Lions should back up out of 17? If there's 3-4 guys that they could definitely use, like let's say Caden Proctor's there, McNeil Warren's there, Hell, let's even say Peter Woods is there. Another defensive tackle. If those 3 players happen to be there, you could essentially, and you could move down to 20. Would you do it? And just take whatever one of the 3 is there.
Has Brad ever moved back in the first round? Well,
Yes.
he did in the
With Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs, yeah.
And he went 6 spots down.
From 6 down to 12. So he has moved back for more position, and he's moved up as well.
I think there's a big difference in that draft.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, let me speak to it real quick.
All right.
Let me pull it up. In the first round in the 2023 draft, you had Bryce Young, you had CJ Stroud, and you had Anthony Richardson go in the top 4 spots. Will Anderson at number 3, and then Devon Witherspoon, which I think was a shocker for some. It wasn't for me. That rounded out your top 5. And so then you had Paris Johnson, Tyree Wilson, and Bijan Robinson through 8, Jalen Carter through 9. And I think the Lions already made their mind up that they didn't want Carter. They would take either one of Bijan or Jahmyr. They probably didn't like Paris Johnson. And they were probably hoping that Devon Witherspoon was going to be there at 6, but he wasn't. And so Darnell Wright didn't make sense for them. Peter Skronsky didn't make sense for them. Both, I believe, left tackles. And they already had a left tackle in Taylor Decker. And so by moving down to 12, you then have your opportunity of, is Jahmyr going to be there or Bijan going to be there? And Luca Van Ness at 13, Broderick Jones at 14, which Broderick Jones, I can't say he's been great. I think he's okay. And then Will McDonald. I think Will McDonald's a phenomenal athlete, and I think he would have been a great pick, but they passed on him too. So I think that you go back and look at that draft, the difference is there was 3 quarterbacks in the top 5.
Yeah.
This year, you're going to have 1 quarterback. And that changes things.
Yeah, and when people talk about Brad's best draft, that was it. It was Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch. We could see another.
Well, what about
draft
Hendon
like
Hooker
that.
and Broderick Martin?
Well, yeah. Don't you know they're Hall of Famers?
Well, I'm just saying, you already had 4, supreme athletes. You couldn't take.
Who cares what you did in the third? The first and the second was 4 of the most. 4 of probably the best first 4 picks in any draft ever.
They might be. They legit might be with 1 trade. They might be. And so you could do it again. I mean, you could move from 17 to 21. You're probably only going to get an extra 2nd round pick out of that deal. I would hope. And it depends on who's trading. It really does. If it's Pittsburgh, okay. I don't know who they'd want. I mean, are they going after Ty Simpson? Is he really going to go in the top 20? I don't know. I don't see it, but I guess the point that I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Brad has to do something in this draft to earn some picks. He needs to stack some picks. If he doesn't stack some picks in this draft, then I think that free agency it means that in free agency we've settled up and shored up a lot of those areas. Let's move into some other information today, and then maybe we'll play a little bit of the pressers today. We talked about Linderbaum yet or no?
Very little.
So Linderbaum, why don't you go ahead and talk up Linderbaum for us?
Yeah, I got the whole thing here. Let's see. Where did I put it?
While you're looking that up. So while he's looking that up,
Here it is.
I want to just chat real quick on Ben Johnson. So earlier today, I think it was like 11:30, whatever time he jumped in to do his presser, I was listening intently. And when he said that last year's team for the Bears was the closest knit group he's ever been a part of. And I'm thinking to myself, I doubt that a coach would ever say anything different. They're always going to say that the team that they're on is the best team they've ever been a part of. I don't believe it. I honestly don't believe that the Bears group has been any better than what that 23 and 24 Lions group, was all about. 25 Lions, I think we had some issues. But You can't tell me that those guys weren't the closest group we've seen in Detroit in a long time. I think the culture and identity really picked up in 2023. Hell, even in 2022. I think that was a pretty special group, the way that they fought and turned that season around and finished 9-8.
That 12-5 team that got that monkey off its back, that won 2 playoff games and went to the NFC Championship game and was within 17 minutes having the lead in the NFC Championship, almost grasping a Super Bowl. And you're telling me that this team that beat the Packers twice, 2 out of 3 times, and got swept by the Lions was more close-knit?
Yeah. And as a Lions fan, I guess, I'm sitting there and I'm like, this brash son of a bitch.
I call BS on all that.
Yeah. I don't know. Ben, he looked a little worn down today. He
did.
tired.
Doesn't he look older? Like when somebody
he
becomes
looks-
president and then all of a sudden they look 30 years older after 4
yeah.
years?
Ben's definitely showing his age.
Yeah.
He's definitely looking a little bit older. So there's that. And then let's go ahead.
I did find the Ravens thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Ravens GM Eric DeCosta said they've made a market-setting offer to pending free agent Tyler Linderbaum. Now it erased some of my stuff. But now they've come out and said they are not tagging him with a franchise tag or a transition tag. They do not want to do a tag. They've given him a market-setting deal. So that means Creed Humphrey has right now currently leads the NFL in the way of the center position at $18 million per season right now. So that means they've offered him more than $18 million a season. So that's probably in the $20 million range.
Yeah, I would say so.
Can we afford that at the Lions to say, okay, we'll give him 21 per season or 22?
I would say yes. And honestly, I would almost overpay, and this is the only time that you're going to hear me say this. If Tyler Linderbaum fits your offense, then it's a player that I think you have to overspend on. And as an NFL franchise, like that is the worst thing that you can do, is overpay for a player. But if we're talking $1.5 million over what he's being
what if it
offered?
takes $5 million to get him to come here because he's already bought his house in Baltimore and he's got John Harbaugh over at the Giants wanting to bring him over there, and he's got the Chargers wanting to bring him over there because the Chargers, they just lost their center today. He retired. And then the Bills, they want him because McGovern, he went to Florida to be the center for the Miami Dolphins. So there's going to be a bunch of teams that are looking for a center, one of the most important positions on the offense, probably the second most important position on the offensive line to get right behind left tackle.
I would flip-flop that personally. I think that the center is the most important position on the offense outside of the quarterback, and then I think after that it's left tackle, but without a good left tackle, you don't have a quarterback. So for me, it's probably center, left tackle, quarterback. Obviously, let me rephrase all that. Quarterback's the most important position. We know
Okay.
it.
Well, how about this then?
I think you have to get the center and the left tackle before you get a quarterback if you're building a team. Let's put it that way. We're not building.
Why do left tackles make so much more money than centers then?
I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know, because if you look at the teams, well, I mean, I guess I do know. They're the blindside protectors, and blindside protectors have historically always made more money than any other position. And for some reason, a center that is sandwiched between two guards and two tackles have always been underpaid. And that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way forever. I mean, I think that you've seen some centers be paid very close to what the top left tackle position was at one point, but it's just not that way anymore. I really don't understand it, because without the captain in the middle, that's not your quarterback, there's not a lot that you can do with a center that is inferior from a protection standpoint, because if you can't block through the center of the defense, that's where they're going to get to your quarterback the quickest. And see, Jared Goff just never had to worry about Frank Ragnow in front of him. And who's to say? I mean, I get it that maybe the ship has sailed on Frank Ragnow, and I would say that it probably has.
I think he's gone. Because listen, if Frank had the injury that they said he had, there's no way he's going to be ready for you. You don't tear your groin or whatever it was and have surgery and be ready for the workouts in May. It's not going to happen.
No, I get you. And the question again, the question is, could the Lions do it, and could they afford it? The Lions can afford whatever they want. The question is, does it make sense? And would they do it? And I would say that here's how it works. If you grab a left tackle in the draft and you release Taylor Decker after June 1, and you save $11.5 million just from doing that, the next guy we're going to talk about is about to free up $8 million. His position is going to be recertified in the draft. Then right there's your $20 million. So if you are a net negative, minus $1, $2, or $3 million after losing two guys and bringing in Linderbaum, that's a win.
Yeah,
because you're going to be able to reset both of those positions. Your left tackle out of the draft is going to average about $10 million a year. And then your new running back to pair up with Jahmyr Gibbs is going to average about $1.5 to $2 million a year.
Yeah.
So you are way ahead. And so I guess to let the cat out of the bag, the next person that we're going to talk about is David Montgomery. And I'd have to say that I looked right at you once it was said.
Jesus.
And I said he's gone.
Yeah.
It's done. I think David Montgomery is out the door, and there's no looking back.
Yeah. After, I have to admit, you were right all along, because I just couldn't see it. I had my fan goggles on. I could not see a world that David Montgomery was not playing for the Detroit Lions this upcoming season. And listening to Brad today, the way he talked about David Montgomery, and when he was asked, is David here to stay, basically, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but when he said, it's completely up to David, we have no control over the way David feels. That's paraphrasing. And when he said that, Will and I just looked at each other and we're like, he is gone. And you could just feel it that they'd love him. They want him back. Brad said as much. Dan said as much, that they would love to have him back, but it is completely up to the player, which is so strange to me that the players can have that much control, because there's been times where players have played for other teams and the teams refuse to trade them or get rid of them or move them. I mean, just look at what's his name for the Eagles there? Brown. Isn't it Brown?
I didn't even hear what you were saying.
The wide receiver. For
A.J. Brown, yeah.
A.J. Brown. For him, he's wanted off the Eagles for years and has caused problems, reads books on the sidelines, does all this stupid crap. And the Eagles, they're like, you're under contract, buddy. You ain't going nowhere. Whereas the Lions, David Montgomery doesn't want to play for us anymore, so we're just going to let him go? To me, that's weird. To me, as a business owner, I would be like, you know what? You signed your name on the dotted line. You're playing for us. And I don't care if you play 2 plays or you play 500 plays in a season. You, sir, are under contract. So,
well, I get that. I mean, from a business standpoint, I understand what you're saying, but let's be honest.
You have to have.
Well, hold on. Let's be honest about this, because unfortunately, there's a thing called culture and camaraderie, and those are probably the two most important pieces on a team throughout a season is that you have the right culture in place, which I believe David Montgomery will always fit. And, he will always put his best foot forward, whether he's, the second back or the first back or, in a rotational role. However, if he doesn't have that same energy when he wakes up out of bed every day that, damn it, I am helping this team win because I'm getting my touches and they're giving me opportunities. And that's not happening because Jahmyr Gibbs is being heavily utilized again in 2026. Then that changes the focus and that changes the mindset. And I think that, under contract, it only goes so far. And I think that Brad Holmes is right here. That if the player may not be happy, that does not help our team because we need that player to wake up with that same energy, that same grit, if you want to call it, that he feels he's a big part of this team. And right now, I don't think that he does. Matter of fact, here's what Brad Holmes said today. He said, we love David. He's a great player. We'd love to have him, kind of want to put last year in the rear view and just move forward. But obviously, a player has to want to be in a certain place as well. So those conversations are still fluid, and we're just trying to see how it goes. Certainly, he knows how I feel. Drew loves him. Who wouldn't? This guy's a heck of a back. And so we'll just see where everything's at. Certainly, there's been healthy conversations. David's a pro, so we'll figure this out. I just don't know what there is to figure out. Brad went on to say that they've been in touch with David's agent, that they've, had healthy dialogue, which is always good. And, even when David Montgomery went through the Super Bowl, gauntlet of Radio Row, he seemed like somebody that wanted to be in Detroit, that he was okay with the role that he was in. But you could also see and hear the subtle jabs that he was, kind of taking like, hey, I want to be involved too. Yes, I support Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a special athlete, but I want to be involved too. And, when he was asked by Chris Sims, hey, you're a number one back, on many teams. He's like, you're damn right I am. I absolutely am. So he knows and feels that he's a number one back, but he's not a number one back in Detroit. And that's unfortunate for him. He knew that going into this. He knew that because he came in the same year that Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted. So he knew that he was coming into a situation where he was going to be in a rotational role. However, let me lean on something before you give me your comeback here on David Montgomery. Dan Campbell said something today that was very interesting. He was talking about Drew Petzing in the scheme. Mm-hmm. And he said that, in a nutshell, paraphrasing, of course, that Drew Petzing, is coming to this kind of like eyes wide open, that it's not just a heavy 13 personnel. He emphatically said that I don't see us as that kind of a team. That doesn't mean we're not going to use it. And that could be all smoke and mirrors because that's the kind of season we're in anyway. Mm-hmm. So the fact that, he doesn't see us as this big, heavy personnel, team, that gives more opportunity to David Montgomery. And how Drew Petzing has been involved with Jared Goff, and now Mike Kafka's the passing coordinator, as I expected, which if you go to DetroitFootballJournal.com and you check out some of the recent articles that I wrote about those two guys, well, not recent, over a month ago, you'll see in there that I layered it that way, that it was Drew Petzing's offense and it was Kafka's passing offense, right? It was Drew Petzing's run game and 13 personnel, and it was Kafka's passing layers that I kept putting in there because that's how I seen Kafka fitting into this offense. And now he's the passing game coordinator that was just announced over the last, 48 hours. So given the fact that Dan Campbell sees that this offense is fluid and it's going to be kind of whatever works mentality, that we're going to do what we're good at, that leaves the door wide open for David. Is it enough?
It could be. But after listening to Brad, it kind of put a nail in the coffin of David Montgomery coming back this season. So, I just saw somebody text me a proposed trade that another network put out there, proposal that the Chiefs would give us a 5th-round pick in 2026 for Mr. David Montgomery. You can't tell me David Montgomery is not worth more than a 5th. That's my 2 cents. I really believe he could be a starter on 30 out of 32 teams in the NFL.
Who was it that was traded for a 5th?
They were saying David Montgomery for a 5th-round pick to the Chiefs.
And I would say that's pretty close. And the reason why is this year the Chiefs are picking, fairly early. Where are they at? 12, 10?
They're top 10.
Yeah, so they have a top 10 pick in the 5th round. I would say that if the Chiefs were to give us a 4th-round pick, that's probably the best that you're going to get for David Montgomery. If you go back to history and you look at running back trades, even some of the best to do it, over the last 10 years where there's been a trade, it has not been gaudy numbers for draft picks.
Well, and it's been a lot of trouble with running backs because, look at Saquon. He wanted more money. They couldn't figure it out. They didn't tag him. They didn't trade him. They just let him walk, and he went to the Eagles for nothing because they just simply couldn't get something done. Now, that I thought was a bungle by the Giants. How do you let a player like that walk out the door for nothing? That was probably one of the worst, just didn't do anything moves ever in the NFL, letting Saquon walk for nothing. And I don't want the Detroit Lions to do that either. I don't want them to just cut David Montgomery and not get anything for him. Man, I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss that 1-2 punch, Sonic and Knuckles. It's going to suck. It's a gut punch because, I'm still at heart, I'm just a Lions fan. So it's a gut punch.
It's not going away though, Eric. Just because David Montgomery's gone.
Yeah, but then your dynamic duo is gone.
Well, Sonic and Knuckles is gone, but there's gonna be another player that's gonna come in and fill that role. And I'll be totally honest here, Jadarian Price, Washington, Black. There's multiple guys in this draft that are gonna be as dynamic. They're not David, but they're going to be as dynamic. They might even be better as a blocker, which we need desperately. And I think that you're going to be just fine. I think that we're going to be just fine. But to your point, yeah, the whole Sonic and Knuckles thing is gone. So I just looked up, some of the recent trades. I forgot that Tank Bigsby was just traded. Like I loved him, coming out of the draft. I really did. And he was traded for a 2026 5th and a 2026 6th.
Well, David Montgomery is a hell of a better back than Tank Bigsby.
Well, we'll see. Tank Bigsby, he was highly touted coming into the draft. And honestly, what year was that? Was that 23? I think it was 23 or 24. It's 23. He was 88th overall. So he was a high 3rd round pick.
He was with who? The Texans to start?
Jags.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Eagles traded those picks in, but in return, it looks like they sent a couple of picks back, or vice versa. It doesn't tell me who traded for what. It doesn't tell me the rest of it, but 124 and 131. That might be this year. Those might be the numbers this year.
No, I think that's the money.
Is that the money? That is the money. Okay, I was looking at picks.
Yeah.
So they got a 5th and a 6th for a guy that was just drafted in a 3rd round. Where was, and it doesn't even matter what David Montgomery was drafted because it only matters, how well has he played. Brian Robinson, he's a pretty damn good running back. He was traded for a 6th round conditional pick. Jordan Mason, he was traded for a 2025 5th round and a 2026 6th round pick. Kyle Monangai was acquired
Oh, really? I thought he was drafted.
So that was a 7th round pick by the Bears, wasn't it? They acquired Monangai with a 7th round pick when they traded Khalil Herbert to the Cincinnati Bengals for a 7th round pick.
Yeah, that's what that was.
Right. And then you've got Cam Akers, who was traded to the Vikings from Houston for a 2026 6th round pick conditional. And Minnesota also received a 7th round pick with Cam Akers.
Yeah, that was a
Conditional.
pick swap, 6th and 7th in a player.
Yep. And then you've got Houston. They got Joe Mixon for a 7th round pick. And then it was funny because just a couple, seasons before they traded Cam Akers, or one season before, they picked up Cam Akers from Los Angeles for a 6th round pick, and they got Cam Akers in a 7th,
Yeah.
and traded away a 6th, and then they turn around and did the same damn trade
A year later.
a year later. Identical trade a year later,
Oh, jeez.
getting rid of him.
But there's the big one right there.
Right?
The Detroit Lions with DeAndre Swift. Oh, that's it right there.
Okay, so I mean, how high do you value DeAndre Swift? I mean, look how good he's been, and if you compare him to David Montgomery, I would say that David Montgomery's a better back, more power. DeAndre's obviously a little bit more speed, a little bit more finesse, but he's a 7th round pick, and DeAndre Swift, and we got a 7th round pick and a 4th round pick.
Yep.
So again, that's where that 5th round pick makes sense.
Yeah, we swapped 7ths and we
picked up a 4th.
Picked up a 4th, but what did we do with that 4th round pick? Looks like we must have traded it away.
We probably did. As a matter of fact, that was last year's draft, so I'm not real sure what we did. It was conditional. Maybe we never got it.
Oh,
Maybe DeAndre Swift had a better year and we didn't.
no, I remember us having a 4th round pick for
That might have been our own, but
yeah.
so anyway, you just going through the last. I mean, that's going back through 2023. Let me dig back in here a little bit more.
But wouldn't you put Swift and DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery pretty similar stat wise?
Maybe statistically over the last couple of years, because he did well in Philly, and then he did well in Chicago.
They're about the same player.
Yeah, I still think that David's more powerful than him, and I think that
more reliable, more dependable.
I think he provides a little bit more, in the run game and short downs, but Swift offers a lot more in the screen game. So let's go to the big one, Christian McCaffrey. He was traded back in 2022.
Yeah.
And the 49ers gave up a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 5th.
Yeah. Let's get that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, but let's get that for Demo.
It's not going to happen. So I think that if you go back and look at all these trades, a 4th round pick is the highest you're going to see for a guy not named Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
And I think that that's going to be the highest that the Lions are going to see with David Montgomery. Plus, he's got an $8 million price tag, which is not a cheap price tag, and that's also part of the trade scenario. Is how much is it going to?
That might push down what we can get for him, because if a team like, let's say, the Chiefs is looking at David Montgomery and thinking about trading him for a 5th round pick, well, why don't they just take their 5th round pick and pick up a rookie that's way cheaper?
You're talking about the Lions.
No, I'm talking about the Chiefs. Why wouldn't the Chiefs, instead of trading for David Montgomery, just go for a rookie that's a lot cheaper with that same draft pick?
Well, they absolutely could, but I think that it goes in line with teams that have a team. And the Chiefs still have a team, even though Mahomes is battling back, and Kelsey's probably gone. I don't know. There were some updates on them. I haven't really read them, but they still have a team that can go win. Well, I don't know. Rashee Rice is in some trouble again, but teams that have a team that can win, they want a player that can win with now. They don't know what that rookie's going to do, especially a later round rookie. And it doesn't happen very often that you get a Kyle Monangai, but he also ran behind a pretty incredible offensive line.
Yeah, but it can be done. And listen, I would not want to be the Detroit Lions facing the Kansas City Chiefs in the friggin' Super Bowl with them having David Montgomery as their running back on a terror. I wouldn't want to see that.
I don't want Demo to be gone either, but I think that, after the conversation today with Brad Holmes, it's pretty clear that that David Montgomery maybe is considering that he wants to play for another team, very simply because he wants more touches. He wants to be more involved, and maybe he wants to be more the number one guy.
That is exactly. After today's press conference, I just see no other way. And it's not just about what he said, it's how he said it.
Yeah.
It's the inflection in his voice. You could see almost the tear welling up in his eye talking about.
Well, you could. I mean, you could tell that he was visibly shaken up by it. Just thinking about the player.
And he, Brad and Dan are very emotionally attached to these players. Look when they had the draft and they got their first player off the board, Penei Sewell, and they stood up and they're high fiving and cheering and hugging each other, and that's how invested they are in these players. It's not they're not just picking a player, they're picking a family member, and that's kind of what they're doing. They're bringing them into their tribe, their family, and these guys are more than just friends. They go to battle every Saturday, every Sunday, every Monday night. They make stuff happen. They're working with each other 7 days a week, more than 8 hours a day, 365 days a year. These guys put in the work. And the coaches, they don't really take any time off. I think a week after free agency starts, they might take a week or two and go to the Bahamas or something.
Yeah, who knows? Let's take a listen to Brad Holmes here. We'll take a brief break and listen to Brad Holmes here for the next 16, 17 minutes, and I'll stop and start a little bit in between. But let's go to Brad Holmes now and kind of finish breaking down what he was saying.
We have had some of those discussions.
And no, I can't do anything about the questions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Taylor, he's earned the right to have as much space as he needs to reflect on, a long season, and we respect him. We give him that, but obviously, with the start of new league year coming, that's obviously you want as much clarity as possible. So within these next couple of weeks, we'll make sure that we have that clarity. Yep. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a disservice to be fixed and closed off on on anything that can help the football team, and obviously with which are weighing the future and the right now. But bottom line is that we have to make those kind of decisions to make sure that we're in the appropriate let's call it window from a financial standpoint. To be able to.
Let me do a quick pause here. Are you guys getting any issues on your end with the feed kind of timing out, buffering it all?
I'm not.
Perfect. Let me know in the chat.
To make the moves that we want to make, but no, and I've always been open-minded with that. It's just that we've been in kind of different windows every single year as we've gone through this journey. So I've been open-minded with that for sure. It doesn't really affect, I would say, the draft for sure. We always kind of take the same approach with the draft. But, the only thing from a free agency standpoint, that might change certain things. But just we have to make sure that we're prepared. We have to make those decisions on if we do any kind of restructures or any kind of stuff. But those decisions will affect the next decision in terms of how much available finances you'll have to spend. Say that one more time. Yeah, I mean it's case by case, because at the end of the day, The decisions that we have to make, or that we're always or that we have been faced with, is that you don't have two separate budgets, right? It's only one budget. It's only one pot, right? And so when you take the philosophy of draft, develop, and retain, right? Well, the more let's take the word retain. Well, the word retain means pay. You got to pay money, all right? So if there's one budget, you don't have your own retained player budget and then a separate external free agent budget. Now you can splice it up within that one budget. This is how much you want to use to retain your own players. This is how much you want to use for external free agents. But the more you retain, that smaller that budget becomes. So, but there's still, but we'll have flexibility to do some things. So I don't think every single year is the same. It's not just last year we had that approach, but it could be entirely different this year.
Okay, I want to break it down here real quick. First and foremost, welcome back into Two Guys in a Fern tonight here on Rockhound Detroit Lions.
You see the fern back there?
Yeah. The thing that Brad is talking about here, I think it's funny that we got the fern behind us. It's hilarious.
No guys in a fern.
Yeah, no guys in a fern for a minute. But anyway, Brad, what he's talking about here is there's not two separate budgets for your the guys that you want to keep, and call it your free agents. What's that?
I like that question.
I didn't see it. I'll turn you on in just a second. So you've got one. You just have one budget. Let me just start all over. You have one budget. There's not two budgets. There's not a free agency pot, and then there's not a draft pot, and then there's not a retained pot. It's one budget, and I'm glad he looks at it, like that. However, what he just said at the very end, because the Lions don't have a pot right now. They don't have a pot of gold. They literally have no money. And they have very little. Matter of fact, they have about $26 million, and by the time you settle up free agents and get 51 even signed, they got nothing. But what he just said is that they're probably going to be in a different situation this season, and it sounds like they're going to be negotiating some restructures. He did say that they're going to have some ability to do some things this season, so that's important. What was the question that you saw in the chat?
Yeah, so Peter Van Laarhoven says, if running backs are a dime a dozen, why is Gibbs worth $20 million? Have you watched Jahmyr Gibbs take over a game with 3 touchdowns, with 4 touchdowns, with an 80-yard run and a 75-yard pass, and just absolutely take a game over? That is why you pay Jahmyr Gibbs $20 million plus a year.
Well, I think what he's asking, and I don't know who brought up dime a dozen, but I know that I've referenced it in the past. There's receivers and running backs in every draft, and they absolutely are a dime a dozen in the NFL, because every year when you bring in 5, 6, 7, 8 different running backs on different teams, you're going to have good, solid production out of a majority of them, as long as that team has an offensive line. If they don't have an offensive line, you might take a season or two before that team really gets rolling again. But there's always a lofty pot of wide receivers and running backs available in just about every draft. And then in other drafts, there's even more so. Like this year, the wide receiver room is extremely deep. And I would say the running back room is nowhere equally as deep as the wide receivers, but maybe about 2/3. I would say that you're going to find some really good running backs into the 4th round this year, and you might find a gem in the 5th or the 6th round this year. Are they a dime a dozen from the perspective that you can just go in and no matter where you're picking in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round that you're going to find somebody? No, you have to do your homework. But to replace a second running back, they're a dime a dozen. To replace a 3rd and a 2nd wide receiver, they're a dime a dozen, depending on what you need done with that 2nd or 3rd running back or wide receiver. In our case, it's a little bit different. For the Lions, when you look at Jameson Williams, that's not a dime of the dozen, receiver per se, but if you find a guy that has speed, and if you find a guy that knows how to run some routes, you're probably going to do a lot with him, just like you did Jamison Williams. And what it all boils down to is production. If you can replace that production, then that's all you're really looking to do is replace that production. It doesn't have to be the same style of play. It doesn't have to be the same flashiness. You just need the same quality of snaps. And you're going to find that every year. And I guess to piggyback on what Eric was saying about the contract, you're not going to let Jahmyr Gibbs go. He's been extremely healthy throughout his career, and he's been, he's durable outside of being durable, but he's been, I would say, trustworthy. I mean, you know what you're going to get out of Jahmyr Gibbs every game. And as long as you have an offensive line in front of him, just like any other running back in the league, he's going to do tremendous things. You're going to have to pay him $22-23 million a year. He's going to break the bank, and he's going to break it by about 12% more than the highest paid running back ever, which is Saquon Barkley. And that's because, every year the league increases their salary cap. And in the last couple of seasons, it's been damn near record breaking. So he's going to get paid a big amount of money. It's just easier to replace David Montgomery. I guess where I'll leave it.
Yeah. Attila's got a good question. So he says, from what he's seen or watched, other channels interpreted what was said today by Brad, made them think that David Montgomery was returning, and that was the vibe. Or was that the vibe in person? In person, no. I got the opposite vibe. Because, listen, I have been staunch from the beginning of all of this that David Montgomery is 100% coming back and playing with the Lions this season. And I thought that through every video we've watched and everything we saw at the Super Bowl of David, and then everything we saw from Brad and Dan at the Super Bowl or wherever they were at, everything has pointed for me to David Montgomery coming back to this team 100%. But then the way Brad talked today, you're going to hear it here, and listen to the way he says, not what he says, but listen to the way he says it and his body language, because when he started talking about David Montgomery, I basically dropped my phone and looked over at Will, was like, oh crap, he's gone. And we're both shaking our heads.
Yeah, I don't know where you guys are getting this, that you thought that this was leaning towards positivity. Earlier I read the quote by Brad Holmes. So let me open up another page. While we're listening to Brad, I'll pull back open the quote so that I can read it to you again after he says it. So let's go back to Brad.
Yep.
There it is right there. Perfect.
Yeah, look, I've been in touch with David's his agent.
What just happened?
Froze and then the audio stopped. I think
Are we still going?
Yeah, we're still going.
So what the hell happened?
Yeah, we're moving around and stuff.
This is like not moving though. Like I can't get nothing to.
Look, when we tried him out there early in camp, he wasn't doing anything wrong that we had to move. Our core players that we want to keep around, they're part of our foundation, keep in house, but have them, kind of want to put last year. I've been in touch with David.
Okay, here we go. My bad. I don't know what happened, but here we go.
Yeah, look, I've been in touch with David's his agent and his representation. Obviously, look, we love David. He's a great player. We love to have him. Kind of want to put last year in the rear view and just move forward. But obviously, a player has to want to be at a certain place as well. So those conversations are still fluid, and then we'll just kind of see how it goes.
So let me pause it there. I mean, he just said
he has to want to.
He just said that he has, that the player has to want to be in a certain place too. That conversations are fluid, they're ongoing, they're healthy. I mean, that's all good, right? You can have good, healthy conversations with people. You can have a great, healthy conversation with your wife and still be going through a divorce. It's responsible people, people that have good emotional intelligence don't have to argue or fight or, make things messy. If you're a true professional, in every sense of the word, you can have a great conversation with your wife and say, I love you, but unfortunately this isn't working out. And she can turn around and say, I agree. Let's just do what's right for the kids. And let's not make this messy. Let's just, do right by each other. Same situation here. It's a breakup. It's not ever fun, but this is the NFL. It's rare that you see a big mess happen in the NFL. It does not happen very often. And the reason why is because you got to have people like Brad and Dan and others that are involved that are, leading from the front. And quite honestly, Brad and Dan don't always have to lead from the front. There's a team of really good people that they hire to do just these things. They hire negotiators to be negotiators. They hire people that their cortisol level is just so cool, you know what I mean, that they can handle any amount of stress. And in high stakes negotiations, for the player's perspective, there's a reason why they have an agent. You need that buffer. And when you have that buffer, then feelings don't get involved. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure you guys have heard about, some players that have had, done their own negotiations with teams. I think Lamar Jackson was one of them. And one of the biggest reasons why that was a big no-no is because you may sit down with a GM and a coach and they say, you know what? We don't think your arm is as good as you do. And that player may not have heard that had they had an agent buffering between them. What would the agent have said to the player? Hey, they just think that there's some things that you probably need to work on. And they feel that we're $20 million apart because, you haven't developed enough. That's a big difference than a coach saying, Lamar, I'm sorry, but I don't think that you can hit every throw on the field. And until you do, we just don't feel that that's worth $300 million. So I'm sorry. Unfortunately, this is the dollar amount that we're going to have to stick to. Big difference, because that goes straight to that player's heart and they feel disrespected. So in this case, between David Montgomery and the Lions, they have a buffer for a reason. But even if they don't, Dan and Brad, I think, are pretty straight up honest dudes. And I think that, whether these conversations are going great between the agent, that's all you can expect. I wouldn't expect anything different. And that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a breakup down the line. It just means right now that it's good, healthy conversation. We're going to try to do what's right for David. And what that could also mean is this. We're having good, healthy conversation about where we're going to send David. We're not going to send him to the Browns. We're not going to send him to the Dolphins unless he wants to go to Miami. We're not going to send him to Arizona. You know what I mean? We're not going to send him, to a shit team in the NFL. We're going to send him somewhere where he can succeed. It's just not going to be in the NFC. Sorry. That's a good, healthy conversation, isn't it? I think it is. But that doesn't mean David's going to be playing for us in 2026. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and even me as the guy who thought there was zero chance of David Montgomery leaving this team in 2026, I now see that as the most reasonable outcome for David Montgomery.
Yeah, I think that I think negativity is, I think it's a bad term in this case. I think Gina just said it best. Yeah, I'm not feeling the negativity. I mean, it sounds like they are in negotiations, and I think that's a good way to put it. It's good ongoing conversation and good negotiations that are happening. I don't think it's negative, and it should never be a negative situation. That if a player is going to get moved on from and traded, I think what happens is fans have more feelings than what the coaches and the GMs have, and I don't mean to be negative with that or say that they don't have feelings, because they absolutely do. But at some point, a GM has to be a GM. And they have to know that I can't be attached. I have to do what's right for my team. And if that means we need $8 million to go out and get a center, then that means we need $8 million to go out and get a center. And without a center, our season is all but lost again. So I think for a fan, if you find out later on this season that the Lions made a move with David Montgomery, it's gonna sting. And then if you find out at the end of the season that we won a Super Bowl and that move with David Montgomery led to the Lions being able to go get the player that helped them do that the most, how are you going to feel then? That's the question that I think you need to ask yourself as a fan. Be pissed at Brad and Dan, or maybe be optimistic that they're trying to deliver you what you want. And I guess again, I'm going to definitely leave it at that. So what do you got on it?
Well, whatever David and the Detroit Lions decide to do, much love to David Montgomery. Thank you for everything you've done. And I wish you nothing but luck, dude, except for when you play against the Lions.
Right. I guess I got to stand up.
Yeah, I almost need to, too. These chairs are
these chairs are terrible. Like
we have the worst metal chairs in the world.
I found a really great place, but unfortunately, it's not as great as I wanted it to be, because everything was getting scooped up in like the last 24 hours, and I wanted the whole house, and I had this like cool backdrop that was behind us. It was Star Wars, and then there was another home that had all these pinball machines and pool tables, and wish y'all could have come over here and we could all just have fun.
Yeah,
maybe next year.
Jomo in the chat, listen, I'm not sure if we're right. I'm not sure if we're wrong. And, you say, I don't disagree with your logic, but I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure yet either. But after listening to Brad today, it put me over the edge of thinking that this is probably 95% David is leaving, unless there is some kind of intervention with the Lions players that go to David and be like, come on, dude, we'll get it this year. This is going to be like 23 and 24. This isn't going to be like 25. We got rid of Morton. Dan's not going to be calling plays anymore. This is Drew Petzing. This is Kafka. This is totally different. Dude, we love you. We want you back. Come on, man. If something like that happens, maybe he comes back. But for right now, I'm going to push all my chips in towards David Montgomery is going to be gone in 2026. And I don't want to see that. I'm a Lions fan. I'm a Demo fan. I'm a Sonic and Knuckles fan. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If he does leave, I wish him nothing but the best. I'll cheer for him every week unless they play the Lions.
All right, so up next, I wish that I would have taken some timestamps down, but I want to say that this is where did I ask him the question? I didn't take a timestamp down because I don't want to play the whole damn thing, but maybe I'm gonna have to. It's not all the way at the end. It's about halfway through that I asked him about Tate Ratledge, and we already kind of covered Tate a little bit. As far as Demo goes, I guess in life it is what it is. I think that Demo wants more snaps. I think he wants more attention. And it's not a bad thing. I don't think he's being conceited. I don't think he's being arrogant. I just think he wants more. And maybe in Detroit that's not part of the plan, because they want Jameer to be, a bigger part of this team. So it is what it is. All right, back to Brad.
What's that?
So what has he told you now?
Next time, remind me to
His
switch
agent.
screens.
Yeah, those are conversations that I'll keep in house. But I would say that I've had healthy dialogue with David at the end of the year, and I've had healthy dialogue with his agent.
Clarity have you guys received covering timelines for Kirby and how might that impact what you guys do?
Yeah, some of it. Look, they're both doing everything they can to get as healthy as possible. We haven't put a a hard timeline or deadline, but we've been in regular communication with our medical staff. Our medical staff's been in regular communication with the player, obviously working with them. So I know that they're on track to get as healthy as possible. But I think in like another, month or so, then we'll obviously know a lot more.
You guys announced your staff association. What are you hoping to achieve with some of your staff changes this year? What excites you about the staff?
Well, I think what excites me is that it wasn't we didn't have to endure the turnover that we had to endure the previous year. I mean, that's hard, man. Like that's a challenge. Now, when you have success, you got to be prepared for those challenges as well. But to get the OC that we were able to get in Drew and even adding, Kafka as well, but not having this wholesale turnover, that was kind of best of both worlds. So I don't want to say it was better than I expected, but we feel really good about having Drew come on board as the new OC and then still be able to retain all the other members of the coaching staff.
All right, so I got something I wanted to share here on Kafka and Petzing. I was thinking on the way back today, and I mentioned this to Eric, that when you think of what just happened, I should not have put this candy in my mouth. When you think about, I got to get it out. When you think about what happened this year, excuse me, guys. What is it, 22 players? Oh, yeah, switch. My bad. See, you got it there. 22 players, or 22 offensive coordinators. I believe it was the number, 21 or 22.
21, I think. Yeah.
So 21 or 22, whatever the number was, offensive coordinators that were changing hands this season is huge. So we have Kafka, we have Petzing. So let's just say, Petzing has an incredible year. Lions win a Lombardi, and he wants to leave. He's going to get a head coaching job.
Which would probably happen.
So he leaves. Yeah, because he's been up for head coaching jobs before. He leaves. Well, Kafka slides right in. That is a great way to be set up for the future. But then I started thinking, man, there's just no way we're going to lose these guys next year. Unless something crazy like that does happen. 22 or 21 offensive coordinators just change hands. Unless some of them get fired after year one, there's only 10 other teams in the league that would be potentially looking for an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot less, I think, head coach jobs. There's going to be a lot less turnover in the coaching positions in the league for the next couple of years. That's usually what happens when we see a year with record amounts of, because this tied the record for the most head coaching jobs. And then
it beat it, didn't it? With 10.
I think it tied it with 10. Okay. And but I think this is the most, I don't know if they track it, but this has to be the most offensive and defensive coordinator changes that have ever happened in the NFL. Because just like the offensive coordinating position, the defensive coordinators, there's been a ton of those as well. And not just on teams with head coaches that got fired. So there's been so much turnover and so much turmoil. And that's one good thing for the Detroit Lions. They get to play 6 of those teams next year that have new head coaches. And I don't know how many we play that have new offense or new defensive coordinators as well.
So that's interesting. And then, I guess the other thing, I guess to piggyback what I was talking about earlier about, center and kind of watching what the Bears did and how they heavily invested into that offensive line. I don't know what this narrative is. Last year, I guess I really don't understand this part of it. Last year, a lot of Lions fans and other, media members were saying, the Lions are going to have a down year because they changed their coordinators. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, then why did the Bears do so good? Why did the Bears do so good with a new coach and new coordinators over there in Chicago? Why did other teams do good that did the same thing?
They were healthy.
Right? They were healthy. That it had nothing to do with the coordinators outside of Johnny Mo sucked, but it had everything to do with the health of the team. The health of the team is going to dictate which way the ship goes. Because even if you have I guess less than ideal options at offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or coach, the players on the field are the ones that are going to make the plays. We didn't have the players on the field.
Yeah,
The
the
Bears
Bears
did.
also got an offensive line.
Yep, they did.
Getting Tooney from the Chiefs was huge. He was the protector of the year. He beat out Penei Sewell.
Which he doesn't deserve.
Yeah, I don't think he deserved it either. I think it was all name recognition because he went from the Patriots to the Chiefs to the Bears, and he's been awesome everywhere he's went. And yeah, did he do good for the Bears? Yes, he did. Their new center did much better. Caleb Williams wasn't running around as much. He didn't take as many sacks, and he had a center, like Will said, that was calling protections, and
He was doing more for Caleb than Caleb was on the field.
Oh yeah, he was getting people aligned and in the right position. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this upcoming season, the Detroit Lions could fix their offensive line. They could fix their health problem. They could fix the offensive coaching problem and have everything come together for one friggin' season where we have our premium offensive and defensive coordinators. We have our coach being the head coach instead of being a coordinator. We have health on the offense, health on the defense. And even if we don't have 10 out of 11 on each side of the ball that are premier players, we go deep into the playoffs, we win some playoff games, and make it to a friggin' Super Bowl.
There we go. All right, let's get back into Brad here for a few more minutes. And, whoops, I'm all over the place. There we go.
Conversations with those players, but you still have to set the same expectations. But I can't say otherwise that it definitely is different. It's something that we've never really experienced in the past, but all you can do is just make the necessary adjustments and adapt. The only reason I'm going to refrain from answering that is this, because I felt like in the past I've been a
So, by the way, that was John McAroon asking his annual or biannual or quad-annual edge question. I don't know. He asked the edge question, 10 times a year, it seems like. It's nonstop. And so it was an edge question.
little bit more liberal answering like the positions of strengths, strengths, weaknesses, all that. But I have felt in the past few years that I'll feel one way right now, and then a month later, I feel completely different. And I do think that's a natural feeling. I think that feeling should happen because I think that's a testament of all the work that entails of this whole draft prep process. It's not as easy as like, oh man, it's a lot of defensive ends, available for this draft right now in, late February, early March. Well, come early April, that might not be the case. And so those are some of the things that I kind of have spoken with you guys about in the past of just information that's not available that might shift things. So that's the only reason why I know what it appears to be. It appears to be a deep crop, and I would agree with that, but it might not be as deep as we think in about a month or so.
And that has been my take all year. I think that everyone is looking at the edge position right now, and they're saying, man, there's a deep group here. My number one thing is arm length in measurables, right? Cassius Howell, as good as he was at times, since his name has been mentioned, that dude has extremely short arms. They're probably going to come in under 32 inches. And that's a problem. When you get to the next level and you're going up against elite left and right tackles, those 32-inch arms are not going to help you, especially when, he's a little bit smaller, doesn't have as much power, and he tries to win with all speed. Doesn't mean that he can't win with speed if he's playing in an off-ball linebacker situation, which I think he belongs in. I think he's more of a 3-4, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. And by 3-4, I mean off-ball linebacker, not up on the line. And so when we get the measurables this week, I think a lot of these players are going to start moving all over the place. And what I mean by that is down. They're going to start moving down when the measurables come back and they're not as good as you want them to be. And quite honestly, when you think about defensive end and you think about the size that they should be, it should be north of 6'3". It should be north of 260 pounds. And they should have at least 33 and a half inch arms. That's a starting point. Okay, then you start to square them off as far as, what are their intangibles? How smart are they? Do they really love the game? Do they know the game? All that stuff, the intangibles. Get into the agility. Do they have, good vertical? How fast do they run? Not that you're ever going to run a straight line in the NFL, but at least you know what their speed is. Their broad jump, their 3-cone. I mean, all of it matters. And for me, people like me that don't have the time or the resources to be able to go out and scout these guys at every school all year long, like scouts do, I have to rely on the combine. And I think a lot of players, really show their true. Go ahead. What?
All right. You ready for this?
Well, hold on. I think a lot of players show just who they are at the combine, and that's why you're going to see some movement. So anyway, now go ahead.
This is about you.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Sure.
So Attila writes, Will, the Detroit News has run a story based off of your Tate Ratledge question. See what you've done?
Yeah, but who did they mention?
I don't know. They probably don't mention you.
Yeah, so they probably don't mention me at all, right?
But he did ask that question and did get a good response from Brad Holmes saying that Tate Ratledge didn't do anything wrong to get the center position taken away from him. It was just Graham was the better fit last year, so they ran with Graham. Graham had more experience at the center position than Tate Ratledge, so there's no reason why he could not be their center of the future going forward. That was basically what it boiled down to, what Brad said today, and you'll hear it here in a minute.
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming up, but we'll finish him out right now.
Draft a couple years ago in Detroit. What kind of buzz did that create around your city, and what could the people of Pittsburgh look forward to this year?
It was amazing.
We're going to skip past that one.
Having a right-handed quarterback and protecting the guy's blind side, and that's the same hurdles and challenges as a man-to-man corner. You're on an island, and these edge rushers in this league, they're real dudes that have real stuff in their body. So I would say that they're equally as important.
10 new coaching staffs, maybe NIL, getting up the draft capital last few years. How much is the trade market an opportunity this season?
Yeah, I mean, you would think that it would be more active, just because you have those are still dialogue that we just got to have in the future.
Where's Tate Ratledge on the center conversation for this season?
Yeah, I think that's still I think that's a real option. When we tried him out there early in camp, he wasn't doing anything wrong that we had to move him back. We just felt like where he was at the stage of his career being a rookie, we felt right guard was just going to be a little bit more of an easier acclimation for him. And then Graham's previous experience playing the position center in our offense was a little bit more easier for him as well. So at that stage, we felt like that was the right thing. But there's still promise for Tate to move in that position. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that that's flexibility that we have. So whether if we add guard, center, whatever, I think Tate will always be in that conversation.
So hold on there. So that was my question, by the way. And if you notice something, that's the only question you could hear. I try to project and get loud for you guys. I want to play the tail end of this because he said something I didn't pick up at the time.
That's flexibility that we have. So whether if we add guard, center, whatever, I think Tate will always be in that conversation.
So he said whether we add guard, center, or whatever. You heard that. Okay. Whether we add guard, center, or whatever. I apologize. I didn't put Brad on the screen asking the question. I can go back and replay it again. I think that's really interesting. Let's go back to Brad and ask the question one more time. We'll go to Brad full screen here.
Those are still dialogue that we just got to have in the future.
Where's Tate Ratledge on the center conversation for this season?
Yeah, I think that's still I think that's a real option. When we tried him out there early in camp, he wasn't doing anything wrong that we had to move him back. We just felt like where he was at the stage of his career being a rookie, we felt right guard was just going to be a little bit more of an easier acclimation for him. And then Graham's previous experience playing the position center in our offense was a little bit more easier for him as well. So at that stage, we felt like that was the right thing. But there's still promise for Tate to move in that position. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that that's flexibility that we have. So whether if we add guard, center, whatever, I think Tate will always be in that conversation.
What's that say?
It's on the free press.
Holmes dishes?
On potential real option at center for Lions.
What does dishes mean? I got a different one. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to go back to that and hear it one more time is I didn't hear him say whether we add guard or center that there's real potential. So I get that the real potential is there. I guess I'm a little bit miffed. I mean, I guess, does that mean that Mahogany and, kind of what my theory was in the beginning of the year was, or after the season ended, is that Mahogany and Frazier were not locks at guard. And I kind of wanted to see Brad, make those guys level up that room a little bit, bring in the competition. If you move Tate Ratledge to center, I'm just going to be straight up. They better bring in an all-pro on the other side. If you look at the best season that we had, one of the best seasons, but 2024 was one of our better years on the ground. And the reason why is you had all-pro Kevin Zeitler, you had Frank Ragnow, and you had Penei Sewell on the right side, and Taylor Decker was fairly healthy on the left. It really didn't matter who was in at left guard. But they ran to both sides, but they did run to the right quite a bit. But that is why we were able to run the football. If they put Tate at center, I want to see another level up at guard, whether it's an all-pro type, move that they do in free agency. And quite honestly, there might be more guards available in free agency than left tackle. And so that would make a lot of sense too, because if you can run between left guard and right tackle, that's about 85% of your play tree. So your off tackle stuff, the outside zone stuff, you don't have to go to the outside. I'm not saying that we couldn't or shouldn't or wouldn't. I think that they still will. But I think that when you look at the ability that, okay, Christian Mahogany or Frazier, they battle it out. I think they make a decent left guard. But I think that the other one doesn't deserve a starting spot just yet unless they come in and blow the doors off. If Tate moves to center, Christian or Frazier goes to left guard, you bring in an all-pro level right guard, or, I just don't want to see another rookie there, not to start the year. So I think it's an all-pro that you bring in at the right guard spot, and then the Lions are 80% of the way there for their offensive line. So where does that leave them? That leaves them with the ability to go in at left tackle and do whatever they want in the draft. They can sit for a year. They can fight for the spot, with Taylor Decker. If Taylor Decker takes a back seat, maybe he restructures his contract a little bit to stick around. Who knows? And maybe that's the case with Taylor Decker. Maybe he's coming back, but maybe he's coming back on a restructured deal. And that's going to open up the Lions, to have some opportunity to do some other things. So I guess that's my thought there on what he was saying. I'm going to move into Dan. Go ahead, though. You were going to say something.
So in your opinion right now, do you think it's better to have Tate at center or right guard?
Right guard.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with that. I could be totally wrong.
But you want a center that's been a center the whole time.
Yes, and so that's where I was going to go with that. Is I get it that Frank Ragnow played right guard when he first came in, but the difference is he was a center his whole frickin' life.
He was a college center.
So I that's what I want to see out of Frank. Or I don't want to see that. I don't want to see the same thing with Tate Ratledge that you move a guy from right guard to center, and he's never done it.
Yeah, and what if you get halfway ththrough the season and you're like, "Oh, this shit just ain't working"?
Well, then you're screwed because you're halfway through the season and it's over.
Yeah,
you know how hard it is to get a center or an all-pro right guard or whatever in free agent or the trade deadline. You know how hard it is to find those guys. All right, let's move on to Dan. for a little bit here, and then
Will got a question in with Dan too,
Yeah, I did. That's right.
and it's a good one.
It's a great one. Best question of the day. Well, that's playing. I'll be right back.
How we doing? Good. Been a lot that's transpired here, really since the end of the season. You know, we're still in the process of kind of looking at everything, the cut-ups, offense, defense, special teams. Defense is really what we've been involved in. I've been involved in with Shep and those guys because we have the staff intact. Fortunate to be able to keep Jim O'Neill. You know, he had an opportunity to go with the Jets, so that worked out good for us. So really we got the staff still intact, and it's about cleaning up some of those little things. And then offensively, it's Drew kind of getting up to speed with our terminology. He's been getting together with golf, and you know, and just trying to make sure that we get everything that kind of makes sense for him, but for us as well, and he in golf. And then we'll start hitting the cut-ups. So that's kind of where we're at with that. You know, Drew was fortunate to find him. I've always liked Drew from afar, you know, facing those guys, but then just watching common opponents, you know, through the years, what he was able to do offensively, I always liked it. You know, there was creativity to it. You know, certainly they've used a lot of heavy sets lately, but that's where their roster has gone. You know, that's not something that that I foresee us being. We're going to be versatile, but he gives us that ability to make the most of what we have. And I just think he understands the protections. I understands the run game. He understands the pass game, certainly, quarterback play. So I think he's got it all. He's coached receivers, coached tight ends, coached quarterbacks. And I think that's important. It was important for this one. We had, you know, a lot of different guys to interview. It was great. The process was great. A lot of good men, good coaches, great coaches, really. But he was the right fit. It was. I felt that within 20 minutes. So it was really good. So fired up to have him. And then one of the guys I was really high on through that whole process was Mike Kafka too. And we were fortunate to get him really pass game coordinator. So that worked out really well. But a guy who's been our interim head coach, you know, has coached quarterbacks, has coached some good quarterbacks, running offense. So he's got a good perspective on things. He's got some pretty good ideas. So anyway, that was good. Steve Oliver, we promoted from assistant O-line coach to tight end coach. He's earned that. He's really been. I've interviewed him twice. Over the last two times we've had that position open, and it was time. He's earned it. So fired up for him. Guys are excited. And that's where we're at, really. That's where we're at. Now it's just about how do we improve from here. Brad and I have had a number of conversations. Free agency's coming on. But, you know, for me it needed to start with what can we do a little bit better as coaches. We're not that far off. We still had a top 5 offense. Our efficiency was a little off. So how do we get a little bit better with what we do as coaches? And now it's about the roster. You know, where do we upgrade ourselves? Where do we bring in some competition? So excited for another year, man. Yeah. I think that, I think that's a fair assessment, but I think it more as, you know, this is my, it's the most time I've had to be able to sit down with the defense and just go play by play, cut up by cut up. And, well, let me go back. I think Shep did a good job, and I think he learned a lot, and I think he grew a ton. And I love the staff that's around him. I really do, man. I think those guys from Casey Rogers to Deshae Townsend, to get Jim O'Neal back, Sean Dion Hamilton. I just think it's a really good unit, man. It's an experienced unit. I think we got a lot of flexibility on what we do. Man, we just got to tighten the screws on a few things. But I love the staff, and I love what we do. Man, are there things, we've already been through the cut-up, like, man, if we could go back, maybe we would play a little bit more of this or a little less of this. And so I think there's a lot of clarity in some things, adjusting when we get a few injuries here and there. What can we do better? What do the players, what can they do better? How complex is this really? Is it out of their wheelhouse? It's just we're asking somebody to do something they cannot do. So I think it's to be able to go into year 2 and learn and grow with a guy who is receptive. He's always looking for answers. He's always looking for new ways to do things. I'm talking about Shep, and with an experienced staff around him. So that fired me up. And so that really has been where my focus has been over the last, call it 3 weeks. Yeah. Your first question to that was just about, so I've left him alone. We had a conversation right when the season ended, about just him taking his time to figure out what he really feels like he wants to do, can do. And so I've left him alone there. I don't want to say we haven't had a conversation, but I'm leaving that between us. But there'll be some, look, if it's not, then we got to find a guy, right? But if it is, we still got to find a guy, because as much as I love Deck, it's he's got some things that are going to need some management, and that's kind of where we're at, And so we're one way or another, we're going to need somebody that can play over there, and that can help us if we need them in a crunch or we need them as a starter. So that's important. We've talked about the interior of the offensive line too. That's important. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that Dan Campbell's picture was all screwed up. I don't know why or how that happened. My apologies. I didn't look at it before I left. So I wanted to comment on this anyway. So let me just fix this real quick. I apologize, everyone. It's been a long day. It's been a really long day. Well, we're going to be on for probably another 10, 15 minutes or so, and then, or at least I will be. And then it's time to go for today, because we got a super long day tomorrow and then 5 more days right after it. Or however many days. We don't go back till Monday, so. Anyway, I wanted to comment on this part of Dan Campbell here talking about Taylor Decker. So, Eric, I'll ask you, if you're Taylor Decker and you're listening to the press conferences today, which I'm almost willing to bet that he was, was this the part of the press conference that was like, oh, you need someone to play over there no matter what, huh? And I hear you love me, but I need management. And you know what? To hell with all that. Brad, I'm playing. It's over. I'm playing. And so did that give Deck a little bit of a kick in the ass today to tell the Lions that that he was ready to come back and play for the season? Now, to be clear, he's under contract, so it's not like he has to do anything but show up. I mean, clearly having good communication with your team ahead of the draft and free agency is super important. And Dan also mentions here that with the management, we need someone to play over there. And quite simply, if he goes down and we need someone that's really good to play in a crunch, which tells me, he didn't say really good, but I think that we need someone over there really good. I can't imagine that you don't want somebody over there really good, but does this also speak to Manu? Is there no faith in Manu? So I don't know. Where are you at on this?
Yeah, it's not sounding like he's got a whole lot of faith in Manu. Like he's like, I've been there, done that. It is time. Whether he stays or whether he goes, we are drafting a left tackle in the first round of the draft. That's what it sounds like to me. And
that could possibly be it. That they're still looking at at taking a tackle that early or in free agency that maybe that's the play. My biggest concern out of this whole day today was my second question of the day with Dan Campbell, and I asked about Kirby Joseph. So we're going to get through that, and then that'll be the last part of tonight's show. So let me get Dan back in here.
We've been digging, we've been looking at stuff, but until we can kind of figure a little bit of those pieces out, and then exactly who is going to be available, who are we going to have the ability to potentially go after, how does that affect another position or the depth of the roster, then we're waiting it out here a little bit. David's another guy we talked at the very end of the year, and I told him I was not, I like to give these guys their space and just let them kind of unwind a little bit in their own way. They don't need me in their ear. But certainly he knows how I feel. Drew loves him, who wouldn't? This guy's he's a heck of a back, and so we'll see where everything's at, Certainly there's been healthy conversations, I'm sure Brad told you guys, probably mentioned that. So all good, man. David's a pro, so figure this out.
Coach, on the community engagement side, there is an initiative with the Office of Roger Goodell's communications team to cure a rare fatal disease that's been terminal for 70 years, and it's in 8 NFL markets. And one of them is an hour away from Detroit Stadium. And I'm curious to know if you wouldn't mind, it's called PCAN, Pantothenic Kinase Associated Neurodegeneration. An initiative started in the Super Bowl, and I'm curious to know if you wouldn't mind me connecting with Jesse Giambra or someone on your staff to give them more information.
Give me a minute. All right. That's yeah. That's tough to say. We've been treating.
Okay, so the question before my question, so that was me that just asked the question on Kirby Joseph there. Confidence on Kirby Joseph for the season. And Dan Campbell's about to answer it right now. The question before that, it was about some sort of incurable disease or something like that, and something around Detroit. I couldn't quite hear it, but he wasn't going to get into it. It wasn't football related from what I could understand. Whatever it is, I hope that they found what they found today. But anyway, Dan Campbell on Kirby Joseph.
Give me a minute. All right. That's yeah. That's tough to say. We've been treating him. He's done a few things. We're in a I would say we're in the position now to where we're slowly working him back. What is this going to look like? How is it going to feel? Call it a month from now, maybe a month and a half. And then I think we'll have a lot better idea, because is this something where he's going to be able to handle what it's going to feel like, or can we get it stable enough? Can we get enough strength? It's all of those things.
Okay, this has me the most concerned. I know it does for you too, Eric. This is where I'm at. Kirby has not played since week 6 of the 2025 NFL season. That is roughly mid-October, November, December, January, February. He has been out at least 4 months then, I guess. Is that what we're talking here? About at least 4 months. And this knee injury, or not really knee injury, but it started back in training camp. So Kirby Joseph, we talked about it earlier today, but Kirby Joseph and this knee issue is not going away. It's not going away because it can't go away. And I don't know where Dan is in his thoughts with this on, making it stronger and can he play on it? Can he go through a season by making it stronger? You can't if it is interarticular arthritic condition, you cannot make it stronger to be able to stabilize it and get through a season. If it is bone on bone, there is no amount of muscle around the knee that is going to help that situation, as I am not a physician, as I'm not a surgeon. I've been through similar situations, and I can tell you that I've never been told, dude, go work out in the gym and make it stronger. That's not what what I've been told is you are screwed. You need these injections, and then we got to replace the knee. That's what I've been told. Now, I don't play for $30 million a year or $20 million a year like Kirby. Could be a different set of rules. But I've never once heard, and throughout my research, that Kirby is going to be able to make this stronger. My biggest worry is that the fact that they're just now getting him worked around, getting him back into the fold and things in the off season, and they still think we need a month or a month and a half to figure out what the end story is or the story is for Kirby Joseph. I think that my follow-up question to this should have been something like, how important is safety for you in the draft? But I didn't ask it. So what do you think?
Well, I think now I'm going to pay a lot more attention to the safeties this week. And I'm going to tell you this right now. The Detroit Lions, their first 2 draft picks. This is how it's going to go. Left tackle, safety. The 2 most important positions that we need to fill. So whether that happens partly in free agency, we could bring back somebody like Ife Melifonwu, and maybe he gets us through until Brian Branch and Kirby, either one of them, are healthy enough to play. Okay. And then maybe he's your insurance if somebody goes down week 2 for another 3 weeks, and then you have to have someone to fill in. But
I don't see Iffy coming back. I'll just say that.
yeah, well, it could be.
But I get it. It could be. It could be anyone. Yeah.
A safety from free agency is what I'm saying. From any team, I don't care what the team is. They're not going to go out and break the bank and get the next safety that they're going to pay $20 million to. Because correct me if I'm wrong, when we signed Kirby Joseph to his contract, he was the number 1 paid safety in the league, correct?
At that time, I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And right now, if you're looking at safeties, you've got Kevin Byard out of Chicago that he's probably going to get a much bigger bag than I believe $7.8 million. But this is something that I also wanted to speak to briefly. If you look at what the Bears did, and it's something that I've spoken to quite a bit on how you make a team more consistent and how you create a winning ability by having the right players in the right positions. They brought in 2 safeties, or they had 2 safeties, right? Kevin Byard and Brisker.
Jaquan Brisker.
Yeah, Brisker. And they thought they had someone else too that they brought in out of Chicago for last year. Brisker. There was somebody else though.
You just went by him.
There was somebody else.
Yeah, Jalen Jones.
Nah, not Chauncey either. Names escaping me. But anyway, they had a couple really good safeties they bring in last year. They also go attack the offensive line. The reason why they went after the safeties is because when you were able to affect the defense with safeties that can roam and then get after the football, it makes the front the job of the front 4 or the front 7 much easier, much easier. If you just add another edge rusher and you think that's going to fix your problems, well, guess what? The ball can come out in 2.6 seconds, and there's hardly any edge rushers in the league right now that are getting to the quarterback in under 2.6 seconds. And if you don't have safeties or corners that can hold for even 2.6 seconds, and to be honest with you, it's that first 2.6 seconds that you have to worry about with the receivers, because they can make a quick move and you're not catching up to them right away, and that ball's out and they've already got 7-8 yards, in under 3 seconds. So if you don't do anything with the safeties, if you don't do anything with your corners or all, then it doesn't matter what you have on the edge because the ball's coming out anyway. And that's exactly what the RPO and spread offense, utilizing some of the spread game is good at doing, is making your defense horizontal, and then they're just plugging you right over the middle, or they're right up the seam with a good tight end. Well, guess what? They brought in Colston too. And so they're able to get vertical up the seam in a heartbeat, quickly. And then having two running backs that can also catch out of the backfield. So Ben Johnson did exactly what I've been telling the Lions to do. And he was very successful with it. But Brad has been doing a lot of the things that I've agreed with or talked about way before we hear him at the combine, way before we see what they're going to do in the draft. And that's because there's a philosophy with building a team that has pretty much always been the same. And if you look at the teams that win, they follow the same philosophy. And that is what Brad Holmes is doing. So I would expect that they're going to do something at the safety position. I'll say this again. It will be wholly irresponsible, Eric, to depend on Kirby, and it will be wholly irresponsible to depend on Brian Branch alone. You have to bring someone in that is healthy and competent and can play the position to give the rest of your defense a chance. And if those two get back and they're healthy and they're able to play at a high level, more power to you. But to say that we're going left tackle and safety, 1-2 like that, you're in the boat, you're alone right now. Because right now I'm thinking free agency, and I asked Justin today, Rogers. I said, who are you thinking about at 17 for the Lions? And he quite simply said, I'm not. I said, what do you mean you're not? He's like, I got to think chronologically first. I'm thinking about free agency, and I said that's a good place to be. But who's at 17? He can't do it. He's got to get through free agency first, and that's kind of where I'm at too. And that is, there's a lot of players that I see at number one. There's a lot of players that I think the Lions could get at number one. I honestly don't know which avenue or boat we're going to go or even have an idea until we get through free agency. It's always the way that I've worked as well. But anyway, final thoughts on Kirby and the day.
Well, I'm going to tell you how free agency is going to go. We're getting Max Crosby, and then we're going to get Tyler Linderbaum, and that's going to fix everything. And then in the draft, we're going to take a left tackle and a safety. So that's what's going to happen.
Did you just say Max Crosby again?
Yeah, he's coming to Detroit. You didn't know?
Jesus criminy.
I just saw it on Facebook.
Today?
It's all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
He's coming to Detroit.
He's already come out and said that he's staying home.
Well, and then Spytech today, the GM for
said the same thing.
Raiders said he's not going anywhere. And then I saw he was going to the Bears today and the Steelers and a whole bunch of other teams.
Yeah, whatever.
Everybody's getting Max Crosby this year.
Well, that's good. That's good. All right, y'all. Look, it's been a long ass day, and we've got an even longer one, I believe, tomorrow. Do me a favor in the comments below after the show. Tell us what players are most important that you want us to get good information from, better video from, and maybe ask some questions with. And those questions are, how do they fit to the Lions? No, they're questions that, what do you want to know about the player? What do you want to know about their ability? What is it that you've seen on film, or what is it that you've heard about them that you want to know more about? Those are the kinds of questions that we want to ask, so that we can get more information on them to provide to you to help you with your mock drafts or whatever it is that you're doing this season and getting ready for the Lions here in 2026. So that's it for today for Rockhound Detroit Lions Day 1 recap. 2026 NFL Combine. We'll be back at it tomorrow night. Not sure what time, but just pay attention to the post. And also pay attention to the thumbnails. Turn on notifications is the best way to know. And I think we're going to have some good surprises tomorrow. So pay attention. Be ready to roll. We will be. We'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Pressured by